It can be telegraphic sounding, so only really having the content words in there. The articulation can sound distorted, and it is strongly indicative of left frontal damage if we're talking about brain regions. So this is an example transcript of someone who has a non-fluent form of aphasia, and they were asked to describe the picture here. So this is just a transcript, and then this is them speaking.
It's just the same thing again. Just tell me as much about what's going on in the picture. Child jars.
Wait, sorry. Before I keep going, I'll rewind it a little bit. But there's a table in your lab manual, and it's got about JHM, MS, NW, and BSK. And you have to fill out a bunch of things on here about the content, frequency of pauses, blah, 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 blah. So as we're listening to these, definitely go... wait, sorry, let me backtrack. This is just I don't know who this person is. This is just a random example, and so is this one. But when we get to JHM, obviously, that's when we start filling out the table. Sorry, that was me jumping the gun a bit. Oh, come on.
Probably know what to do. It's just going on. Child jars. Wash them those. It's okay. Fillings and or margin. So anything else that you can see that's what you see? Stools.
Cool. So hopefully you could hear from that even just looking at the transcript, but they've got all of the main kind of words there, but it's fragmented. She's pausing a lot, and the telegraphic is kind of, child, cookie jars, washing, which is all kind of the main things of this picture, but it is really fragmented and broken up. Cool. And then fluent forms of aphasia. So here it says some common/simple phrases sound normal, but the speech contains errors and it sounds empty. And this is strongly indicative of left posterior damage. So compared to this, which is left frontal, this is more commonly associated with left posterior damage. And so this is just a different person explaining what's happening in this picture.
Got the picture here?
Yeah.
Well, what do we have?
Everything. What's happening over here?
So everything's fine. I can see what's going.
Yeah.
It's going to be out there.
I know it's difficult. Can you point out some specific things?
It's there.
Mm-hmm.
Here, I'm begging your cars.
That's right.
And here, yes, what he'd written on the floor.
That's right.
Oh, I'm not sure. Right.
Point out some specific things.
Yes, what he'd written on the floor.
Oh, sorry, I'm not sure why that doesn't have the whole thing on there, but you can kind of get the picture with the transcript here. So compared to this one has lots of pausing and it's kind of got the main words, but it's fragmented. Whereas when this man is speaking, it's a lot more fluent. It's flowing more. It's kind of in full sentences, but it's not making sense. So that's kind of, it's fluent, but it doesn't really make sense there. And there's lots of errors. Cool. So hopefully you were able to kind of distinguish that a little bit. So now we move on to the case examples, but before I get started, I believe this is in your lab manual. Yeah, it is. I think it's on the first page. Definitely look back on this as we go through the questions and stuff, because I think it'll be quite helpful, particularly for these next few when we're talking about fluent and non-fluent. So yeah, I guess the main things here is content words and function words as well. So for non-fluent, content words are mostly present, whereas function words aren't, and the opposite is for fluent, is fluent aphasia as well. Cool. So first up, we have JHM, and this is their description of the cookie jar, the cookie theft picture.
The woman, Dagrun, she not understood water dripping on the floor, and she doesn't notice dreaming. The children, little boy, girl, stealing cookies, the boy give boy, girl, and girl, boy, slip, stool, yeah.
All right, so does anyone want me to play that again? And you can, I'm not sure if you were filling that out with that first hearing, but I can play it again for you if you like, and then we can go through the answers if you would prefer that. Does anyone want to let me know? Perfect. Awesome. So as you're listening to this, yeah, look through that table and try and fill it out. If there's any that you're specifically confused about or would like help on, write it in the chat, or just put your mic on and speak, whatever you prefer. All right. Oh, sorry.
The woman, Dagrun, she not understood water dripping on the floor, and she doesn't notice dreaming. The children, little boy, girl, stealing cookies, the boy give boy, girl, and girl, boy, slip, stool.
Yeah. All right. So, I guess, does anyone want to have a go at if there's one thing on the table for JHM that they're confident about? Do you want to share it with everybody? Also, sorry, I can hear my laptop going crazy, so I'm not sure if that's messing with the sound of everything.
I thought the information content was high. Like she doesn't have any words that aren't like necessary to telling us what's going on.
Yeah, perfect. So that was for overall information content, right? Yeah. So I would put high. In this instance, it says in brackets normal, low, or very low. So I guess I would probably just put normal/high there. But I would say high for sure. Awesome. And yes, perfect. The average length of unbroken utterances was around 2 to 3. Yeah. So there's lots of pauses there. And it's kind of around 2 words each time. Yeah. So I would say around 2. Very good. Yes, frequent pauses. It's very effortful articulation and missing function words. Perfect. So I guess in comparison to that, the content words, she's got quite a good range of content words there. You know, woman, lots of girl, boy, cookies. You know, you can pick it apart. It's just the function words missing. She can't really describe it as such. She's just giving the main details. Cool. So I think that was it, right? Oh, comprehension, which is the bottom one. So if there's an understanding in the conversation, so is there an understanding? Are they understanding what? Oh, can we understand, I guess, what they're trying to say? And does that relate to the cookie jar thief picture? And I would say they can understand what they're trying to say, and they can understand, or that they're responding to the, I guess, the praise that the interviewer is giving them in the correct way, you know, like they're trying to go off of that and use that. So they're understanding that that's kind of right. Yeah, I would say intact or yes. Yeah, whatever. Cool. You smashed it. Hopefully you kind of all had those. So I think it's a bit of I think it's a bit of both. So it's, yeah, so obviously with the patient's understanding comes our understanding as well. Like if we can understand that they're understanding it as well. Yeah, I think it's more patience, but if you're reading it and you can't understand, then yeah. That was just a waffle, but thank you, Hazel. Yeah. And in the case, there's going to be some within the table as well that there's probably not a lot of information relating to how much they can understand. So if that's the case, just put like NA or something. But we'll go over that anyway. Cool. All right. This is just another extract for JHM, but you all got that down packed. I'll just play it for you once. It's them talking about their life.
I have a job, voluntary job for the city mission, working to food bank. sometimes boring. I like it. Yes. I put parcels, put food back. I put something e.g. Rice, spaghetti, beans, food, baked beans, and or put I put them.
I won't play the whole thing actually, because I think you get the picture. Similar to the cookie theft picture. Got a good range of content words here, but it's just so effortful and fragmented that it's you can follow it, but they're missing kind of the crux of what they're trying to say. They only have kind of the telegraphic speech there, so you'd be able to pick it apart if you had to, but it's not giving the full picture. Cool. Is everyone okay with the answers that you talked about for JHM? Then we can move on to the next. Perfect. Thank you very much. So yeah, I guess there's another question after all of them, but for JHM, based on what you have just told me, do you think they have it's a case of fluent or non-fluent aphasia? Perfect. Non-fluent. Awesome. Brilliant. Yay. Cool. All right, let's move on. Oh. Let's move on to MS. So this is, we don't have a photo of the cookie picture, but that's what they're describing. So I'll play it once, have a think about it, and then I'll play it again, and then you can write in the table, and then we'll talk about the answers.
What I see on this picture is a young lady at the kitchen. She's doing the crockery. Supposed to be doing those, but she's in lust of something or other, because all the water from the tank is overflowing. It's running over out into the skin, into the floor. The sink is full of water. She could be looking out of the window with a kitchen garden and another wheelbarrow, another window here.
All right, so it only has that first section. Not the second section, so you can just read through that. I'll play it again and write your answers into the table. I don't actually know if you're writing it directly into your lab manual or if you're just completing the lab exercise as you go, which is totally fine. I'm pretty sure the lab exercise is open for you anyway. Cool.
What I see on this picture is a young lady at the kitchen. She's doing the crockery. Supposed to be doing those, but she's in lust of something or other, because all the water from the tank is overflowing. It's running over out into the skin, into the floor. The sink is full of water. She could be looking out of the window with a kitchen garden and another wheelbarrow, another window window here.
Cool. So I guess a big difference with GHM and MS is that MS does have errors in his speech, but for the most part, he can eventually correct himself. But there's errors nonetheless. So who wants to have a go at sharing at least one thing from the table?
So his articulation's like pretty good, you know. There's only a couple words that he stumbles over.
Yeah, so in that instance for that table, I would say it sounds fairly normal because that was the option that they give, right? Yeah, so it's normal. Cool. Yep, a much longer length of utterances for MS compared to JHM, especially. I would say on average, it's probably maybe around 7 to 10. But I think if you go slightly above or below that for the utterances, then it's fine. Yep, I would say low pause frequency. So in that instance, it would probably be occasional rather than frequent. I'm just looking at what the options are in that table. Very good. Oh, function words always present. Yes, perfect. That's one of the main ones. So what about content words? Anyone want to have a go at that one?
He's got all the content words. It's just he has a lot of other words as well, and he sometimes stumbles over them.
Yeah. So I would say that the content words he's got a good range there. But yeah, his function words are always present, and he's got a good range of content words. As you said, there's just some errors there. What else was there? I think you've got them all. For the comprehension, I would say NA because he's the one that's just he's the one speaking. He's the only one speaking, sorry. So there's not much info available to show that he understands a conversation because the conversation is just him. Cool. Yes, so for content words, you write good. And overall information content, yes. So the overall information content, I would say, is normal. Yeah, even like high/normal because, you know, with that, he's saying full paragraphs kind of. It's just, it's not really making a whole lot of sense. Cool. Awesome. You're smashing it, guys. Oh. Oopsie. Okay, so we don't have a voluntary conversation with MS here, hence the comprehension one being NA. But based on that cookie theft picture, do you think that they are fluent, have a form of fluent or non-fluent aphasia? Nice. Awesome. Fluent. Yes, very good. They were him and JHM were quite different. So it's good that you're, you know, picking up on that as well. Now, does anyone have any questions before we move on? If you do, just write it in the chat. This next case is a patient called NW. I'm pretty sure Carolyn actually Carolyn was there or has interviewed these people as well. So they're all people, not that no one isn't a person, but they're kind of like a more personal aspect of it as well, knowing that Carolyn's kind of been there and helped look for the abnormalities in their speech. Cool. So for NW, there's no audio for the cookie theft, so you'll have to read through that, but there is audio for a conversation that they've had. So I'll play that for you.
So tell me a bit about how you ended up in hospital. Can you remember much about what happened?
I'm not there,
Well, how about when you first woke up in hospital? Can you tell me a bit about what being in hospital was like? So you don't remember much of that either.
wake up.
Oh,
I didn't, did I? I didn't.
well, how about something a bit different? How about what sort of work did you used to do? Tell me a bit about that.
Carpenter for years and years and years. Only job I know.
Tell me a bit about what sort of things you did.
Well, it's been on the roofs and it's hard to say, isn't it? Making frames, putting on the iron, and when they were there.
All right, so just based on that conversation, would you say that his comprehension is intact?
He seemed to understand, but his answers didn't really make sense sometimes.
Yeah, so and I can understand why you would say not really, but it doesn't really make sense, but you can tell that he understands what the interviewer is asking of him. It's just the way that he's then providing the answer that's the issue. So how you ended up in hospital, no, not a clue. He just might not recall. Can say that he was a carpenter after being asked what he used to do as a job. I think this last part here is probably a bit jumbled, but he's kind of talking about making frames and putting on roofs and stuff. So he has some understanding of what's being asked of him. It's just the way that it's coming out is like a little bit random. So for that question, I would put intact. All right. Now I will give you a couple minutes to read through this. And then when you've finished reading through it, maybe just provide one thing from the table that you're confident with or anything. Has that been just repeated as well, that first section as well? I'm not sure if she's done something wrong there, but yeah, very good. There's a limited number of content words in there. I would say going off of this one here, I would say the articulation is quite normal. I mean, there's obviously a few mistakes here, but for the most part, he's kind of it doesn't sound super effortful or distorted. Carpenter says normally, and maybe the roofs and stuff is a little bit distorted, but for the most part, I would say it's relatively normal. But I can see why you'd be able to argue that it sounds effortful. So yeah, I would say, yeah, you can even put something like pretty normal for the most part, just trouble with some words, or something like that. That's a fine answer there.
For the average length of unbroken utterances, when he was answering the questions about like being a carpenter and stuff, it seemed like there weren't very many words put together. But when talking about the cookie situation, like reading that, it seems like there's a lot more. So which of those should we be going off?
I would probably do like a little bit of both. So yeah, with this one, it's probably like around 4, 5. And then this one's more between like 7-ish. So maybe I would even do the same as MS potentially. Yeah, even go higher and go like 5 to 10 or something. Because with this one, yeah, he's doing pretty good here. He's not doing. They're very different. So here it's like he's stringing a whole paragraph together, no problem. But yeah, I would even bump it up a little bit higher and maybe even go 5 to 10.
Yeah, so in the lab exercise, it's like the cutoff is kind of 7. It's got like between 3 and 7 or more than 7.
Okay. Yeah, then sorry. It's different on my piece of paper. But yeah, I would say between 3 and 7, because that's kind of encompassing all of both of the examples, which, yeah, you're right, they are different.
Okay, thanks.
Cool. So yeah, I would say occasional pauses. Very good. Yeah, that's a good question there. I would say that it's the content words are limited, mainly because there are some missing. So yeah, I feel like the lab exercise, you could probably argue either way, and if you make a good point, then you would get the answer correct, even if that's not the universal correct answer. But I would say they're limited or low, whatever it is that it says to up there. Were there any more information content overall? I would say specifically for this one, it's quite empty speech. It's kind of just like anything that comes to mind he's saying, but it doesn't actually make a lot of, his speech is empty. There's not lots of content words. Yeah. Function always present. Yeah. Very good. For the comprehension, as we said before, I would say it's relatively intact, because even with here, he can talk about the work that he used to do, and to some extent he can say what he did, and he also doesn't remember. He's answering these questions, and it's making a fair bit of sense. You can follow on that, okay, he was a carpenter, that matches someone asking for his occupation, stuff like that. I'll just do a little, it's probably easier to keep track. Cool. I think you have all smashed it once again. Are there any more questions for NW before we continue? I'll just look at the chat anyway. So based on this, do you think NW has a form of fluent or non-fluent aphasia? Yes, very good. Very good. Amazing. Awesome. Yeah, fluent. All right. The last case before we get on to the other stuff is BSK. So this is them talking about the picture. I wish the picture was there. It kind of helps to follow along. But
yeah, the mother is wiping the dishes. The sink. The sink has overflowing the water.
Yep. That's good.
Her children, the boy, her son is yeah, long sentence. He her son was
oh, that's so annoying that it only plays a little bit of it. But I mean, you get the picture. It's very, I'd say that's quite effortful and fragmented. Just have a read through the rest of that. But does anyone? Oh, actually, there might be a. Oh, it's just the same. Yeah, that's just the same thingy there. But the final section for BSK, does anyone want to have a go here? In terms of the table, we'll talk about that first. Sorry, I'll actually, how rude of me. I'll go back to this so you can read it. Yep, very good. I would say there's very few common content words. Yeah, I would say low overall information content. And yes, very good. A high frequency of pauses. Yeah, only really manages a couple of words. I guess in this instance, if you're looking at it here, he does a full sentence, which is like around 5. So I'd say maybe even between 4 and 5. He definitely has more than JHM, who was at the start, but still not as many as, I guess, MS, who had quite a few. Yeah, for the function words, I would say they're kind of mostly present, if you can put that in there. And yeah, from the small amount of information available for the comprehension, I would say it's intact. Yeah, so very effortful, limited content words, mostly present function words, high frequency of pauses, low overall information content, and intact comprehension. Yeah, so I guess for the average length of unbroken utterances, you could say anywhere between 3 and 5. Cool. Awesome. Hopefully you've all got that. And based on that, is it fluent or non-fluent? Perfect. Awesome. Amazing stuff, everybody. Thank you. All right. Now, moving on completely. Yep, so we've just done that. The next question is, do any of the cases produce telegraphic speech? And I mentioned this a little bit earlier, which might be a bit of a hint. But does anyone know what case produced, I guess, the most telegraphic speech?
I would say JHM, the first one.
Yeah, perfect. Good job. Awesome. Yes. Perfect. Yeah. So it's kind of all of the key function words are left out, but all of the content words are there, so you can still get it. Yeah, I guess that's kind of what a telegraph was, right? Only leaving in the key information so you can understand it, but not giving any detail, really. Cool. So JHM. Awesome. And then MS's speech contained a number of outright errors. What are these errors called? If you can remember. Now let's go back to MS. So the errors like this and this, I think you can see my and crockery instead of crockery. What is that called? You might have to scramble through your notes if you learned this prior to the break, which is totally fine. But yeah, what is it called when someone substitutes a real word, for example, crockery, for a non-word like crockery? There's a scientific, or I guess a psychological term for it.
Phonemic paraphrasias.
Perfect. Yes. Awesome. Phonemic paraphrasias. Yep. And yeah, it's just like, I think an example there is, yeah, tink, sink, wilbo, window, titting, stitting instead of sitting. Yeah, so when there's a nonsense word that replaces the real word, but it still kind of sounds similar. It's just different. Awesome. Good job. All right. So hopefully you're all okay with that. Just tell me to stop or ask any questions as we go if you have any, all right? Cool. Moving on. So those are kind of the broad aspects of aphasia, fluent and non-fluent. But there are some specific language difficulties that can kind of arise as well. So we'll talk about those. Now, So yeah, the exercises we just did focus on just fluent or non-fluent speech as a whole. But, in order to understand spoken words, we need to identify the word that matches the acoustic sequence we hear. So that's related to the auditory word recognition. We then need to retrieve knowledge about the meaning of that word, which is your semantic knowledge retrieval. So it's about the sound, it's about the meaning, and then that's just understanding the words. And then producing spoken words, you select the word that best matches the meaning you want to convey, which is the lexical selection. And then you retrieve information from your memory about how that word should be pronounced. So that's kind of how it sounds and how you speak it, which is the phonological encoding. And then you convert that sound information into a set of motor commands, which is articulatory motor programming. So phonological encoding is how it sounds, whereas the articulatory motor programming is all about kind of like how you're meant to speak it, how your muscles and your mouth move to produce that sound of that word. So I just rambled on about that there. It's in your lab manual as well, but basically speaking and understanding words is a lot more difficult than just understanding and speaking it. There's lots of different steps that go on, and aphasia can, or people with aphasia, you can see deficits in all these types of different understanding and production of words, if that even just makes sense. You can see deficits in all of these. Cool. There is meant to be an example of the auditory lexical decision task that Carolyn made, but she didn't get around to putting it on there. I'll ask her if she can put it on Nuku for you guys to try. But nonetheless, it's basically where you have presenting a mixture. So you present a mixture of real words and made up words, and you ask the patient whether the word is real or not. And the question in your lab manual and for the lab exercises, if we're only interested in how well the person can recognize familiar words, why do we include non-words in this task?
So that not all of the things are familiar.
Yeah, perfect. Because if you give them all familiar words, or real words, then there's nothing to actually choose from. They're just going to say yes the entire time. That's not an accurate test. So to actually see whether they can understand and know what's a real word and what's not, you throw in the non-words, and if they're saying yes to that, that's kind of when you realize that there's a deficit there. Yeah, so you've got to have a 50-50 chance of getting it right, as opposed to only having familiar words. You just get it correct 100% of the time. Cool. All right. Okay, so I think here, this is MS, and they are just repeating a word back as soon as they hear it. So I'll just play all three of these, and then we can answer the question. Oh, come on, please.
Curse.
Seal.
No.
Lawn.
Curse.
Course. See?
See, yep.
And see.
Curse.
Course. C-A-U-S-E.
No, close. This. C.
Oh.
U.
Good.
Oh.
Just
That's it. Yeah.
I think it's doing All right, so that's the first word, curse. Marble.
marble,
Mo. 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 Play. M first. M.
Yeah.
Again.
marble,
Oh, marble. Marble.
And then the final one.
here we are. Next word is globe,
Gloned. Glend.
globe,
Globe. Globe.
that's right, yep.
Cool. So just based on those 3 words and there, the question is, what clues are there in his responses that he is having difficulty identifying which word he heard? So this is about the auditory word recognition. What did you pick up on in them?
So he's guessing similar sounding words and he's trying to spell it out.
Yeah, perfect. So he's trying to spell it out, kind of visualize or imagine what the word would kind of look like written down. And then kind of as soon as that happens, he's fine. I'm pretty sure that when the words are written down, he can recognize them straight away. So it's all to do with kind of the auditory aspect of it. Another thing there, which you mentioned, is, he's offering these responses, he's repeating them. He's offering responses that he's not really sure of. You can hear it in his voice, and then he kind of says, "Oh, M, is that right?" And so he's not 100% sure, but he's doing it anyway. And there's a few times where he asks the experimenter to repeat. There are some times that she just does it on her own accord, but he's asking her to repeat it, so he's struggling to identify it, and that's a clue in that, is that he's asking for repetitions of the word in order to try and understand it. Cool. So I'd say repetitions, offering responses that he's not really sure of, and then he's visualizing it and spelling it out, which obviously helps. Is everyone all right with that? Cool. And the next question is, word repetition involves more than just identifying the word you hear. Based on the list provided in the last slide, which other skills does it involve? So, does it involve, not involved, sorry. So, word repetition, what else do you think it involves based on these A to E? Yeah, very good. Phonological encoding. So you have to have a plan to produce the word, and that involves recalling its sound form. Cool. You could also probably argue E as well. You have to know what it sounds like, which is the phonological encoding, and you have to know how to produce those sounds. So he can. It's kind of got it glow, gland, and then globe. But producing those sounds is all quite similar. But yeah, definitely D, and then I would say E as well. Because it's not like he's fully off the tracks with what he's saying here. Course, curse, cause, curse. You know, it's relatively similar. Cool. Good job. So that was the auditory word recognition part. So that was about A, and then we just move along. So accessing semantic knowledge. This is all about the meaning of words. So to assess whether a person can retrieve the meanings of words, we use a task like this. It's just word picture matching. You present the person with a word, you usually say it, and then you ask them to choose the picture that matches it. So yeah, it's called the Peabody Picture Vocabulary Test. So the experimenter would say, which one shows citrus? And I mean, you could probably argue that there's many that have citrus. So you'd be tapping into really specifics here for semantics, which kind of leads into that question there. So why do the distractor pictures show items that are related in meaning? Anyone want to have a go?
To make it obvious if someone is having difficulty with the meaning.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, discriminating between the target versus distractors when they are relatively similar, it taps into the specifics about the word. If you don't want them to just be using, because if they were non-related, then that would be kind of you'd be looking at superordinate semantic info. I guess an example of that would be if you're saying something's an animal or not, and then you have a citrus fruit, and then all of the others are animals, they're not semantically related at all. So it's easier to kind of decipher, whereas the closer they are in semantic meaning, the harder it is, which means that you're more likely to see greater deficits, or the deficits will be more apparent, which is exactly what you guys said. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Lovely. All right. I just want to preface this by saying this is Carolyn's dog. So cute. Her name's Sky. She's honestly just as cute in person too. Anyway, all right. So this is now moving on to production. So the last two were about understanding, and this is about production. And you have a two-stage model of word retrieval. Here we've got choosing the word that best fits our meaning. So obviously not cat. And then you've got, there's 3 steps. So you're choosing the word that best matches the meaning. Then you retrieve knowledge of the sound form. So that's the phonological encoding. And then you produce that word. You actually speak it, which is the articulatory motor planning. I just said that right. Cool. So with that in mind, so that's just that's CDE, I think, on that earlier slide. So now we're going to listen to NP, and this is their responses in naming these pictures. And you can kind of listen to it and see.
Jaguar. No, Jaguar, not that.
Right.
Rhinoceros.
Right. And then the pyramids.
Igloo.
Oh, sorry.
No, we had that igloo up there.
We were talking about that before too.
Fix. Pyramid.
Yeah.
Pyramid. Oh dear. And Libum and no. Igloo.
Last one.
Hammock.
All right. So just keep NP's responses in mind. But these are kind of these are semantic paraphrases. So conversely to phonemic paraphrases, semantic ones is when you substitute an entire word for the intended word, and it's usually semantically related or somewhat within the same category, whether it be broad or not, as the intended word. So I'm pretty sure he said jaguar instead of rhinoceros for this one. So they're still animals, they're still somewhat semantically related, they're just way off the bat there. Cool. And then I guess, yeah, similar with all of those as well. He said that was an igloo instead of a pyramid. I guess they're still kind of similar shapes and, you know. Cool. So hold on to that. And then this is STR doing the same picture naming task.
I remember that one. Like there's foods here, like that. But
Yes.
yeah, exactly. But that's not what I know. Coal, another coal. No, not coal, is it? No, it's not going to see a volcano. Volcano.
Great.
I used to have great trouble with that. I usually can say it all right. You know, hilly pot. Hilly. Pot. No, I've done it. Can't do it. Hilly. Copter. Is that right?
Yeah.
Helicopter. Yeah.
Last one.
Oh my God, I hate that thing. And lots of now difficult with this one. Octopus. Is that right? Octopus.
All right. So they're two quite different examples of difficulties, and they kind of lead nicely from question 9 and 10. So which person would be more likely to have a difficulty with lexical selection? STR or NP? Yeah, very good. NP. Does anyone want to have a go at just giving like a sentence as to why?
STR kind of knows the word and she's just struggling to like get it out properly, whereas NP was like guessing similar other words and having trouble like finding it in the first place.
Yeah, perfect. Awesome. Thank you so much. And also to you in the chat. Yeah, I know what the picture is. It's just struggles with the word formation, whereas NP just chooses the wrong word. So yeah, he's choosing a word that doesn't match the concept, whereas STR is choosing the right word, but it's just getting all jumbled, whereas NP is not choosing the right word, but his speech is intact. Right, perfect. So with that being said, hopefully you would write for question 10, based on the picture name examples, who would be more likely to have a difficulty with phonological encoding. I hope that you would say STR here. So in contrast to NP, STR makes a lot of phonemic paraphasias, but not semantic paraphasias, vice versa for NP. So yeah, if you're going to say why, you would probably just say exactly what you said for STR, for NP, but the opposite. So STR knew the word, but just couldn't articulate it. Yeah, was having difficulty pronouncing the word. Cool. Awesome. Those are two very contrasting examples, which is quite nice. Done that. All right. With this one, and the exercise at the start of the lab, you were asked to comment on whether each of the 4 cases had effortful, distorted sounding articulation. Just based on your comments, so I guess looking back at the table and stuff, which of the 4 cases that we talked about at the start might have a difficulty with articulatory motor programming? And I'll just remind you, articulatory motor programming is about constructing a full motor plan that specifies what must move to which position. So that's your tongue, your lips, and in what order. Which kind of seems like a bit of waffle, but it is still important. Yeah, very good. JHM. Yep, that's exactly what I put too. So it's very odd. It's got very odd sounding articulation. And I believe, oh no, it's not there. Yeah, very odd sounding articulation. Yeah, MS had occasional word finding errors, but his speech was natural. So yeah, in terms of kind of the most unnatural sounding speech, I would say JHM. Cool. Awesome. You're smashing it. What's the time? We're almost done, so hopefully we'll finish with a couple minutes extra to spare. So this is just a case of JW with the articulation. So the best way to assess this ability is listening to a person's speech. You know, people with deficits, it's very unnatural, and it's like they're trying to push the words out. Like you can feel how frustrating it is for them because they just can't really do it. Cool.
Helicopter.
Oh, yep.
Accordion.
Yeah, well done.
Elephant.
Cool. So with that, you can kind of hear that it's like the words are being pushed out, or the fragments of that speech that require, you know, different movement and stuff. You can tell how effortful it is. Helicopter. you know, that's a good example. The accordion, they actually do not too bad. But yeah, so it says now you can answer question 12, but we'll do that together. So what case do you think has the articulatory motor programming planning option problem, which I kind of did just talk about, but if someone wants to have a go at saying why, it's JW. Yep. And also JW is just JHM from the beginning, but Carolyn was trying to make it so it wasn't that obvious, so you have to kind of think a bit more about the question. But yeah, she did trick you, haha. Funny. So why does JW, oh yeah, sorry. Yep. So she knows the word and how it should sound, but it's just there's a bizarre emphasis on the certain letter, and it is odd sounding, like it doesn't sound natural, like her speech doesn't sound very natural. And then yeah, if you're comparing that to STR, STR has pretty normal articulation. If we go back and listen to that, listen to STR.
I remember that one. Like the Susie, like that.
Yes,
That's
exactly.
Susie, but that's not what I know. Colcona, another coal. No, not coal, is it?
So even just from that, you can tell that the speech isn't super effortful. She's just struggling to actually remember how the word is supposed to be pronounced. But, you know, she could even say like Mount Vesuvius, which lots of people would probably, I don't know, potentially struggle with saying. And she said that, you know, perfectly fine. It was just actually volcano that was hard. Whereas, yeah, with JW, it's...
Helicopter.
Yeah, pushing the words out. Yeah. So that was so JW with the articulatory problem, and then STR with retrieval of information about how the word sounds. All right, that is the end of the lab. Of course, I will stay around if you have any questions. Feel free to just write it in the chat or speak up. You can also email me. I don't know if you have my email still, but I will give it to you there.